This video is class notes for adding and subtracting polynomials. And the first thing that we have to do is we have to look at some vocabulary. And what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the idea of combining like terms. So if you're going to add, the question is, can you add or subtract terms? So if you're going to add 3x and 7x, the question is are you adding the same thing? Well, 3x simply means you have 3 of something, which is x, and 7 of something, which is x. So this is just nothing more than if you had 3 apples and you added 7 apples. Well, if you had 3 apples and 7 apples, you'd say you'd have 10 apples. So if you have 3x and 7x, you say you have 10x. So we say that 3x and 7x are like terms. Let's say if we were going to go 4x plus 7y, can we add 4x and 7y? Well, we can't, because 4x and 7y are not like terms. These are unlike. So we see these are like terms. We say these are unlike. And the definition of like terms is fairly similar. It's two terms are like if they have exactly the same variables with exactly the same powers. So let's look at some examples of like terms and unlike terms. An example of a like term would be 3x and 7x, obviously. So it would be 4x squared y and 10x squared y. Let's see, 4x squared y, 10x, do they have exactly the same variables? Yes. Exactly the same powers? They do. 5x squared and minus 10x squared are like terms, right? They have the same variables, x, and the same powers. An unlike term would be like 5x and 7, 10x and 12y, minus 14x squared and 3x. These don't have the same variables, these don't have the same variables. These have the same variables but different powers, so there's an unlike term. So these you cannot add, and these you can add and subtract. Given that definition, adding and subtracting polynomials becomes straightforward. Let's say you have 5x squared minus 10x plus 6 plus 3x squared plus 7x minus 21. What we have here is in parentheses, and you have a plus. There's simply the parentheses in this case don't really matter. You're just adding. So the question is there any other terms with an x squared in it? There are. This one right here, so that's 5x squared and 3x squared, so that's 8x squared. This one has an x and this one has an x. That's a minus 10x and a 7x, that's a minus 3x. And then you have a 6 and a minus 21 are like terms, so that's a minus 15. And that's all you do. You want to be careful here. Let's look at the two distinctions. 2x plus 5 plus 3x minus 4 versus 2x plus 5, 3x minus 4. This is just really a notation thing. This is multiplication. This is FOIL. And this one is add. Right? If you have parentheses that are separated with a plus or minus sign, that means that it's either positive, adding or subtracting. This becomes 3x plus 2x is 5x, 5 minus 4 is positive 1. Let's look at subtracting. Subtracting, a common subtracting problem would be 3x squared minus 10x minus 4 minus 6x squared minus 14x plus 2. This is subtracting. The way you want to think about this is, since this is parentheses, you're subtracting all of this. What some people think of this is like a minus 1 that you distribute, or some people say distribute the negative term. It turns out that, though we say it differently, it means the same thing. This becomes a minus 6x squared. A negative and a negative becomes a positive. And a negative and a positive becomes a negative again. and you just combine like terms. You have a 3x squared here and a negative 6x squared here. That's a minus 3x squared. Here you have a minus 10 and a positive 14. That becomes a plus 4x. Here you have a minus 4 and a minus 2. That becomes a minus 6, and that's your final answer. Can it be more complicated than that? Nah, not really. There's another question that's sort of the same. 2x plus 3 minus 4 times 6x minus 10. This is really combining two different ideas, adding and subtracting and also multiplying. You distribute the minus 4 here. 2x plus 3 minus 24x. That's a negative times a negative is a positive. That becomes plus 40. See if there's any like terms. 2x and minus 24x is minus 22x plus 43. Not exactly what we're doing here, but it's the same kind of idea. The only other problems I ever see when people are running into questions like this, when you're looking at like terms, let's say you have a like term problem like this. Let's just say it says simplify, and it's 3x squared y plus 2x y squared plus 10x. Let's do plus 10x squared y minus 5y squared. Again, you're just, the plus here, this means that the parentheses don't matter. You're just combining like terms. You have to be careful with like terms here. This has an x squared and a y. For it to be a like term, it also has to have an x squared and y. This does not. This one does. So this one and this one are like terms. And you have 3 of something, of 10 of something, so you have 13 of something. Let's look at this. 2xy squared. Is there anything else that has exactly an xy squared? There's not. So that you cannot combine. And there's your answer right there. Nothing new. It's just remember what a like term is. We say that this term and this term are like terms because they have exactly the same variables to exactly the same powers. Anyway, that's how you add and subtract polynomial functions.